Today, we're heading right into one of those places, a silent, heavy, and absolutely vital channel that, well, keeps our entire world moving. So let's dive into the shadows of this critical waterway. And that line right there from our source material, it just perfectly captures the whole thing. This isn't just about water and steel ships, we're talking about a lifeline. And as you're about to see, it's a very, very fragile one. All right, so first things first, let's get our bearings and really understand what's at stake here in what they call the world's narrow vein. So we're talking about the Strait of Hormuz. I mean, if you just pull it up on a map, you'll see this tiny, almost insignificant-looking bottleneck connecting the Persian Gulf to, well, the rest of the planet. And it is, and I'm not exaggerating here, one of the most critical arteries for the entire global economy. Every single day, millions and millions of barrels of oil get funneled through this one little channel on these gigantic tankers. The sheer volume is it's staggering. Think about it. That's the energy that powers our cities, fuels our cars, and runs pretty much all of our industries. And that right there is the crucial point. The steady flow of tankers through the strait, that keeps our world stable and moving. But if that flow were to stop, even for a little while, the whole system could just break. The stakes couldn't be higher. But you know, amidst all of this massive geopolitical pressure, there are people, just individuals, living and working right in the middle of it all. So let's zoom in. Let's shift our focus from the giant world map down to a single ship's deck.
I want you to meet Arjun Mehta. He's an engineer on one of these enormous tankers. He's really our anchor in this story, the human face representing thousands of other seafarers who have to navigate these tense waters just as part of their daily job.
And this quote, wow, it just highlights this incredible disconnect. For world leaders and strategists, this place is a giant chessboard. But for someone like Arjun, the stakes are way, way more personal. It's not about politics. It's about safety. It's about the end of a long, hard journey. It's just about getting home to his family. Okay, so now imagine the sun goes down. As day turns to night, the whole character of the strait, it changes completely. The big open water becomes a stage for this silent, tense, nocturnal standoff. 'Cause out here, in all that darkness, you are never, ever truly alone. The water is just filled with these little blinking lights, and every single one is moving with a purpose. Everybody is watching, and everybody is being watched. And this is where we meet the two sides of this constant surveillance. On the bridge of a massive U.S. destroyer, you've got Officer Daniel Ross, staring at a glowing radar screen. And then, miles away, on a small, fast Iranian patrol boat, Officer Saeed is scanning the very same black water, but with his own eyes. Two men, two very different vessels, locked in the exact same nightly ritual. I mean, just look at how this breaks down. It's a perfectly mirrored reality, isn't it? The destroyer sees a little blip appear on its high-tech screen. Well, the patrol boat is that blip. One side senses a presence out there in the dark. The other side is that presence. It's this perpetual, unbelievably tense dance of detection and avoidance. So, we've got the place, we've got the people, and we've got this constant, silent conflict. How does it all come together? What does it actually mean to live and work in this kind of environment, day in and day out?
Which, of course, brings us to the most fundamental question of all. With all this military hardware, with so much tension in the air, are these two sides, represented by Daniel and Saeed, are they just enemies waiting for the fight to start?
And the answer is, well, it's so much more complex, and frankly, a lot more chilling than that. No, they're not enemies, but they are definitely not friends. They just exist as shadows to one another, defined only by the act of watching. And this leads us to this core idea of the shadow state. It's this delicate, unsettling balance. See, the resolution here is that there is no resolution. There's only this fragile, tense gray zone, a place between peace and all-out conflict, where the whole world just seems to hold its breath, day after day and night after night. And that ultimately leaves us with one final, lingering question. This delicate shadow state feels permanent, but is it? Can it be? It's a whole system built on nothing more than restraint and nerves of steel. You have to wonder.
You know, sometimes the quietest moments, they're the ones that come right before everything changes. We're about to dive into a story that starts exactly that way. Not with a massive bang, but with a really unsettling silence, out on the open water. It's morning. Just another day, seems like. The sun's up, the sea is calm, everything is as it should be. But this quiet, it isn't peaceful. There's an unnatural stillness to it. Yeah, it's that feeling, right? Where it feels like the whole world is just holding its breath, waiting for something to finally break that tension. And there it is. Not this huge, catastrophic sound you might expect. It's off. It's a sound that doesn't fit, almost like a puzzle piece from a completely different box. It's a sound that feels like it has a purpose. So what was that sound? To really get what the message was here, we first have to unpack the event itself. Okay, so let's set the scene. The clock winds back to June of 2019. And what we're about to see isn't some random accident. Nope. This is the opening move. Something is just beginning. Suddenly, there's smoke pouring from the tanker's side. The crew is moving for sure, but the vibe isn't sheer terror. It's confusion. They can feel that something is seriously wrong. And when one of them touches a nearby wall and feels the heat, it confirms it. This was an attack, but a really strange one. And that very strangeness, that's what gets us to the whole point of this. This event was never about destruction. It was about communication. And this is absolutely crucial. Look, if your goal was to sink a massive oil tanker, this would be a total failure. But that was never the plan. This was way more nuanced than that. That was the real motive, an explosion used as a form of communication. It's a violent, undeniable signal sent across the waves, and it was designed from the start to be seen, to be analyzed, and to be understood by a very, very specific audience. So how in the world do you create an explosion that's actually a message, one that doesn't cause total devastation? Well, it takes a very specific tool and a whole lot of skill. And the evidence, it tells the whole story. So when investigators look at the ship's hull, they're not finding some massive, jagged, twisted tear. They find this, a clean, precise hole, almost surgical. This is not the signature of a big torpedo or a missile. No way. This is the mark of something placed with incredible care. And the weapon responsible? It's the limpet mine. See, this isn't something you launch from miles away. It's delivered by hand. It's a surprisingly intimate form of naval warfare that requires stealth, precision, and getting right up close. Just try to picture this operation. A small boat, gliding through the dark, engines muffled. It pulls up right alongside the massive steel wall of this tanker. Then, skilled hands reach out, place this magnetic device firmly against the hull, and then they just slip away, just as quietly as they came. It's quick, it's skilled, and it's totally calm. And that's the whole secret to the limpet mine's role here. It's a tool for calibration. You don't want to sink the ship, you don't want to cause a huge environmental disaster, you just want to create just enough damage to make your point. You punch a hole in the hull above the waterline simply to prove that you can. So let's pull all these threads together, because when you get right down to it, this whole attack is a powerful lesson in the difference between chaos and precision. On one side, you've got what we all imagine an attack on an oil tanker looks like, right? Chaos. A massive fireball, the ship sinking, total destruction. But what actually happened is over on the other side. A clean hole, targeted, limited damage, and a very specific message. It's really the difference between using a sledgehammer and using a scalpel. And this one line just sums it all up perfectly. Every single part of this, from the weapon they chose to exactly where they placed it on the hull, it was all carefully controlled to get a very specific result. So why does any of this matter? Because it peels back the curtain on a very modern form of conflict. It shows us that an attack can actually be a form of dialogue, a strategic signal. It proves that damage can be meticulously controlled to send a message without starting an all-out war. The real target here, it isn't the ship's hull, it's the minds of the people who are watching. And that leaves us with one final, and I think crucial question. The crew on that ship, they heard the sound, but they weren't the real audience. So when an act of violence is crafted with this much precision, when it's literally designed to be a message, who is it really for, and what are they supposed to do once they've heard it? All right, today we're doing something a little different. We're actually going to use a dramatic script to dig into something really fascinating. What happens when a huge international incident kicks off and information itself becomes the real battlefield? Yep, we're talking about the modern fog of war. I mean, just think about it for a second. The second some big breaking news story erupts, what happens? Your phone just blows up, right? It's this absolute flood of alerts, headlines, little video clips. It's total chaos. It's instant. And honestly, it's usually super confusing. We've all felt that. And that feeling, the script we're looking at today just nails it with this one line: voices louder than facts. And that right there is the heart of what we're going to get into. This idea that the battle over the story, it starts way before anyone even knows what the real story is. Okay, so let's dive into our first section. We're going to look at that initial chaos, those first few crazy hours of a crisis, and see exactly how this informational fog starts to roll in. So, this is the big idea right here, the informational fog of war. It's this concept that, modern conflicts, they aren't just happening on some battlefield somewhere. They are absolutely being fought right on our screens. It's a war of messages, of accusations, of denials, all designed to create this big cloud of confusion. And boom, right away, the battle lines are drawn. In our script, the first official accusation drops and it lands hard. It's certain, it's forceful, and just like that, one side of the story is locked in. But then, just as fast, the other side hits back, a simple, flat denial. So what do you have? Instantly, you've got two completely opposite stories, both presented as the absolute 100% truth. This right here, this is what creates the fog. And that, of course, brings us to the whole idea of proof. Because in this fog, you'd think evidence would clear things up, right? But it's not always that simple. In the script, you have these characters, Saeed, Daniel, and Arjun, and they're all looking at the exact same grainy, glitchy video. It's supposed to be the proof, the smoking gun, but instead, it just ends up raising more questions. It actually creates doubt instead of getting rid of it. And this is where, as the script says, truth becomes unclear. You see, the goal in these first few moments isn't always to make you believe their story. Sometimes the goal is just to make you believe that a single real truth is impossible to find. The confusion, the fog itself, that's the whole point. All right, so let's see where this goes. Because a war of words and pictures is one thing. But what happens when all that talk, all that noise, actually spills over from our screens and into the real world? And here it is. This is that moment of escalation. Suddenly, the conflict isn't just about arguing over something that already happened. No. Now, it's about something tangible, something happening right now. There's a U.S. drone up in the sky, and that drone just became the center of this entire crisis. And this just perfectly captures the standoff, doesn't it? You have the exact same drone in the exact same sky, but you're being told two completely different realities about it. Was it over international water, or did it cross the line into another country's airspace? Both sides are saying, this is a fact, our version is the truth. And for the rest of us watching, there's just no way to know for sure in that moment. So you can see this straight line here, right? The accusation, that first claim, created all this tension. And the drone being shot down, that is the physical, real-world consequence of that tension. It's a super clear pattern. The fight over the story leads directly to physical military action. Okay, so what does this all mean for us, right? Let's kind of zoom back out now and talk about the big lessons from this whole scenario and what they mean for how we all deal with news and information every single day. So this story, it's really like a toolkit for thinking critically about the news. It's a huge reminder that official statements aren't just statements, they are crafted messages. That shaky video you see, it might be there to create confusion, not to provide clarity. The real goal in this informational fog is often just to make things so muddy, so messy that we all get frustrated, give up on finding the truth, and just retreat to what we wanted to believe in the first place. And honestly, this is probably the biggest takeaway of all. This isn't about trying to figure out who was right or wrong in this specific story, the US or Iran. Not at all. It's about getting better at seeing the patterns, recognizing the game of informational conflict when you see it. It's all about becoming a smarter, more critical news consumer, realizing that every single claim, every clip you see is a piece on the board in a much bigger battle for the story. So, I'll just leave you with this one question to think about. In a world where the voices are always louder than the facts, where every screen is telling you a different story, how do we even begin to find what's real? That, I think, is the biggest challenge we all face in this information age. Thanks so much for joining me.
There's a kind of war that doesn't start with some big declaration. It exists in those quiet moments, right before the rest of the world has any idea what's happening. and it's fought not on huge battlefields, but in dark rooms and on silent, empty waters. Today, we're going to go inside that exact conflict.
Just think about that. The entire weight of a massive, global conflict just teetering on the edge of a single second. Everything is ready, everything's in place, and the whole world is just holding its breath without even knowing it.
Okay, so picture this. We're inside a high-tech military war room. You've got these digital maps glowing on all the screens, and right there in the middle of it all is a man named Daniel. And he is standing perfectly still, because whatever happens next, it's his call.
On those glowing maps, the targets are all marked. They're confirmed. Every single variable has been calculated, every possible outcome has been planned for. And this isn't just a simulation. The planes, the assets, they're already in the air. The pilots are just waiting for that one final command. The whole machine of war is humming, it's primed, it's just ready to be unleashed.
And it all comes down to this. One person, one decision. A finger just hovering over a command on a screen that will change absolutely everything. The tension, you could just feel it.
And then, nothing. The command is never given. The planes are told to turn back. The war that was literally seconds away from starting just doesn't. But believe me, the story doesn't end there. Because what happens in the silence that comes after a moment like that?
So miles away on the other side of this invisible line in the water, a man named Saeed slowly lets out a breath he didn't even know he was holding. There's no celebration, no one's cheering. There's just this quiet, shared relief that hangs in the air across a hostile divide. And this is where it gets really interesting. Because this isn't really a story about grand strategies or geopolitics. This is a story about the people who are caught inside these moments, the ones whose lives are the real currency in this quiet conflict.
I mean, just look at the contrast here. You've got Daniel, right, surrounded by all this incredible technology, and in that critical moment, he glances at a picture of his family. And then there's Saeed, on a simple little boat, out in the strait, all by himself, just drinking tea. Two totally different worlds, but both of these men are connected by the exact same invisible tension.
And they're not the only ones. Somewhere else out on those same waters, there's a sailor. His name's Arjun. He's on a huge tanker, and he's just fighting for a weak signal on his phone. He's not thinking about war. He's just trying to hear his kid's voice before the call drops. His life, and so many others like it, is the backdrop for this whole hidden drama. And this quote, it just nails their reality perfectly. Daniel, Saeed, Arjun. None of them are the ones calling the shots, moving the big pieces around the board. They don't control the game, but they are the ones who have to live with the consequences of every single move. They live inside it.
So if the war didn't happen, but the tension is still there, if the drones are still flying and the ships are still on high alert, what do you even call that? Is it peace or is it something else?
Well, this is what a lot of people call a shadow war. It's not fought with big, declared battles. It's fought with things you can deny. Cyber attacks, political pressure, military posturing. It's all designed to get what you want without starting an all-out war. It's kind of like being in a permanent state of being right on the brink.
And then, in the middle of this quiet war, something pretty remarkable happens. The two sides of the conflict, which are usually just abstract symbols on a map, they become incredibly real. Saeed's little boat passes right by Daniel's massive military ship. For just a moment, they are in the exact same physical space.
And they see each other across the water. It only lasts for a second. There are no words exchanged, no signals. There's just this moment of recognition, a silent understanding of the situation they're both in, from completely opposite sides of the divide.
After that moment, the ships just keep going their separate ways. The immediate crisis is over. But that brief encounter, that unspoken look, it leaves a mark. The water is the same, the ships are the same, but the feeling, the understanding of it all, has changed. So you have to ask yourself, right, has something fundamental actually changed here? Because if you just look at the surface, it seems like not really.
The giant oil tankers, like the one Arjun is on, they just keep moving through the strait. Global trade keeps flowing. If you looked at it from a satellite, it's the same water, the same ships, the same silence, business as usual. But for the people down there, inside it, that silence now means something completely different.
And I think that's really the heart of it all. In a place like this, in a conflict like this, the truth is never, ever simple. It's not some clean line between war and peace. It's this gray area where everything and nothing seems to be happening all at the same time.
And so we end where we began, with our three men, Daniel in his command center, Saeed on his boat, Arjun on the deck of his tanker, all in different places, with different loyalties, all looking out at the very same horizon. But now they're all bound by this unspoken truth.
And maybe, just maybe, that's the real story here. It's not about the war that almost was. It's about the silent, human connections that get formed in the shadows of these modern conflicts. It's about the men inside.
Please subscribe to discover unsolved mysteries of all time. Include a mix of ancient mysteries, famous disappearances, unexplained phenomena, and historical enigmas from around the world. Thanks.